Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the first in actually a series of webinars put on by the Masters of Science of Operations Management, part of the Industrial Engineering Department here at the University of Arkansas. My name is Jim Burgin, and you're going to get to see a picture of me here in a minute. But what I really state in the synopsis is that quality is everywhere. And bad quality you see quite often. Good quality, hey, it shows up in various areas. I can go out to CNN.com and find something on quality every day. So let me do just a little bit of housekeeping here. It is the first in a series of webinars, and you'll see something at the end that indicates some other webinars that are coming up in the future. I'll talk about one here in just a minute. I had a student in my last class, and she came up with Toyota's 14 principles and how it tied back to quality. And so if you haven't read the Toyota Way, this is coming from Jeffrey Liker's Toyota Way. She did an excellent job on it. I'm going to use some stories and some video clips. I'm an expert on my own opinion, and I put that in there because you're going to hear me talk about some of the places I've worked. I'm not going to name the companies because, hey, I might say something good and I might say something bad. And then if you look down at the bottom of this slide, you'll see an email. So if you'll send in some questions, we're going to capture them from here. And with that, they're going to ferret out all the hard questions, and then they're going to ask me the easy questions in about the last 10 minutes. So with that, we go to the next slide, and I worry you with this because it looks an awful lot like me. You can read about me if you want. The thing that will make you might make you feel better about this is the fact that look how old I am. And I'll even tell you that's an old picture. But the point is that even if I know nothing, I have a lot of experience, and I might be able to talk on some of this for the next hour or so. So with that, let's get that ugliness off of the screen. And what we're going to talk about are Toyota's 14 principles. I'm not going to sit here and read them to you. If you want to go back and look at them later on, or you can pull up Jeffrey Liker's book, The Toyota Way, and you can find them there, probably with a little bit more explanation. So we'll go on to the second 14, or second 7. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to run back and grab a few of these things going forward, and I'll show you how I have kind of interpreted them with some of the things that are going on in the world today. But when you talk about Samsung, yeah, probably some of you know. If you talk about Welch Fargo, yep, that's probably got something to do with quality right now. And also SpaceX, because we wanted somebody that was going to do something really well, and we'll talk about it as we go through. Okay, the word philosophy. I've taken editorial license. My interpretation of philosophy can be taken to culture relatively easily. And with that, we're going to talk some about culture today as we go forward. So without further ado, I want to wake everybody up a little bit because you're already going, oh my goodness, this guy's going to be boring. So we're going to watch the trailer to Moneyball. Think about quality while you're watching it. Old thinking. Did you hear what the scouts said? Well, we've done this forever. They just can't get over trying something new. Billy Bean didn't have any money, and he came up with a new way of doing things. I got to tell you about old thinking. I worked for a food processor for a while, a large food processor, and I had the opportunity to interview with the incoming CEO. He was going to be the CEO, and he was looking for a training guy. And one of the things he said was, Jim, if I could make you king for a day, if you were king for the day, what would you change in this company? And I said, old thinking. We had so much stuck in the mud thinking, in my opinion. This is, once again, I'm an expert on my opinion. But it was kind of funny. He did go on to be the CEO. In fact, that CEO's name is Donnie Smith. And great leader. Great leader. We have another course here on leadership as part of the MSOM program. And we also have the chancellor that teaches in the program, the past chancellor. I actually ran into Dr. White yesterday, and he said Donnie Smith was coming to talk. Donnie Smith is a leader that's principled, talks the talk, tremendously high integrity. In fact, I could spend the rest of the day talking about Donnie Smith. And if my students, I saw some of my students sitting out there, they've already heard this. So I just top-notch guy. But let's go back to old thinking for a minute. There's a guy named W. Edwards Deming. And some of you have heard of Deming, and some of you haven't. But Deming was the guy that went over to, when the American industry said, after World War II, said, don't bother us with any of this quality stuff. He said, okay, I'm going to take my friend Joseph Duran, and we're going to go to Japan and teach him how to do this. And I think most of you, if you're old enough, know the end of that. But I like what Deming had to say about change. He said, it is not necessary to change. Survival is not mandatory. And you can talk about that as a person. You can talk about that as a business. You can talk about that almost as any entity. So now, I also had a boss, and like I said, I'm going to tell you a bunch of stories. Change for change's sake. Oh, well, we are really change agent and we really do great things. No, we don't need to change. In fact, I had a boss that said, Jim, if you walk in and things are going pretty well, and you feel like you need to change something, move your desk from one end of the room to the other. He also, and I had a British friend, and I said, well, how's it going in this organization? And he said, he's fixing it until it's broken. The two principles off of the Toyota Way are become a learning organization through relentless reflection and continuous improvement. Now, if you're thinking about Kaizen, that is rather a short, you're going to make small changes, but you're going to make a lot of small changes. And that may not be as difficult in a change management environment. And then it says, develop exceptional people and teams who follow the company's philosophy. Well, Billy Beane and Peter Brand were the learning organization. You could also put something in here about leadership, but they needed to continuously improve in order to be competitive. And sometimes change happens really quickly and sometimes it doesn't. Well, they had a season, one baseball season, to change. And they took the catcher and they moved him to first base, and they did a whole lot of different things, as they said in there, like a team of misfit toys. So what they did was they introduced something that they now call sabermetrics. It's really used everywhere, NCAA basketball. If you want to go back to something even a little bit closer, Kyle Hendricks, who was the pitcher for the Cubs, I read something not just in the last little bit that they had 7 people on laptops sitting around a table and 2 big screens, and they determined what pitch he was going to throw and what pitch was going to be called in every situation out there. And so if you don't think that big data, and we can talk about big data and the election later if you want, but anyway, now if you want to talk about somebody that is not tied into old thinking, let's talk about this guy. Now, I'll give you a second to read what, this is Elon Musk if you haven't figured it out, but I'll give you a second to read what he had to say. So I got to say Elon Musk is not an old thinker. In fact, if you go to the SpaceX website, right at the top, it says hiring the world's best people, not the nations, not the countries, not, whatever. It is the world's best people. And one of the reasons they need to do that is the big thing they're working on right now is going to Mars. So, that's no small thing. Now, everything that I read and know about Elon Musk is strong leader, empowering, and we're going to see his philosophy coming up in just a minute. But you can see his philosophy a little bit on here. We'll tie it back to the principles in just a second. But SpaceX is doing some really, in his way of thinking, some very pedestrian things. They're going to send a rocket up, and then they're going to resupply the International Space Station, and then they're going to get it all hooked up, and they're going to send a rocket up with some people on it so we don't have to count on the Russians to do it anymore and charge us a bunch of money. So, but he's also a process thinker, and he said, hey, how can I cut the price of this stuff? Because he's a businessman and an entrepreneur, and thinks a lot about how to cut the prices. So we're going to go to the second video right now, and I want you to look at two things during the video. One is, if you look from the upper right-hand corner to the lower left-hand corner, you'll see what's happening. And then you'll also see, look at the waves that are lapping on this barge out there. Now, if you want to talk about vision, mission, and cultural values, go back and look at the slide with his comments on there, empowering, but man, if you've got somebody that can come up with a vision and then a mission of flying a rocket, essentially like taking a dart and throwing it with the feathers first back and landing it on a remote control barge out in the middle of the ocean, that's pretty good. They had all kinds of failures. In fact, they had a failure not too long ago with a rocket that blew up while they were fueling it. And actually, the next video on here, I guess, shows exactly how they worked through the process, worked through the learning curve in order to get to the point where they can land a rocket feet first back on a barge. So, Elon Musk, SpaceX. If you want to tie it back to the Toyota principles, grow leaders who thoroughly understand the work, live the philosophy, and teach it to others. Then he didn't do this by himself. He had to develop and hire exceptional people and teams who will follow the company's philosophy or culture. And then once again, here's the hit on continuous improvement out there. Let's talk about the next guy on the slides. Oh, who's this guy? I think you guys probably know. I mean, we talked about SpaceX. Well, let's talk about Wells Fargo. Well, I would say that at Wells Fargo, the wheels came off the stagecoach. But the bottom line is, you go to testify before Congress, sometimes you have Democrats on one side that like you and Republicans that don't, or vice versa. This bad boy didn't have a friend in the room. He was going to get beat by a whole bunch of people. There's a lady named Elizabeth Warren who gave him a beating that was pretty solid out there. What happened with these guys? They opened 2 million accounts for people that people didn't even know what was going on. So here's one of the employees. He says, hey, I saw what they were doing. I called the ethics line and they fired me. Millions of phony accounts, fake PIN numbers, severe anxiety, fear of retaliation, shame. The one I read in there was, hey, I need to tell people that I work for Wells Fargo. If your employees are not happy, your customers are not going to be happy. Your people will do what they're measured on. You measure them on getting accounts, then they're going to figure out a way to go out and get accounts. So it kind of snowballed from there. Leadership should have been saying, why are we getting all these accounts? And then you look back and you do a little bit of to find out what went wrong. Well, there was something called Dodd-Frank legislation, and they were making all these derivatives and everything, and Dodd-Frank made them quit doing these derivatives, but nobody really understood derivatives. They were very risky financial instruments. Well, here's the bad thing about this is nobody understood derivatives, not a big deal, but boy, that's tremendously different than, hey, somebody took my information and opened 3 or 4 more accounts for me to get some extra fees. Well, they lost the derivatives, so they had to find some way to make a quick buck. Uh-oh. They got caught doing that, and now they're shameful out there. And really, if you go back to the election, it seems to point that people are not willing to put up with business as usual with big companies taking advantage of them. So I think Wells Fargo is in a real challenge. Okay, so let's go back, and you've seen the grow leaders who thoroughly understand the work. Well, I don't know if Stump understood the work, but and they were living the philosophy to make money, but that didn't work out. I guess it's got to be the right philosophy out there, and then develop exceptional people and teams. Now, if you don't know who this is Jack Welch, and he was in charge of GE for 20 years, and they had a 23% return during his time. I think he's a great business leader out there. He has written a couple of books. One of them was called Winning, and one of them was called Jack Straight from the Gut. Now, Jack in the upper left-hand corner, that looks like a pretty jovial, maybe even a grandfatherly type guy. Down in the right-hand corner is somebody that has not followed the culture of his organization. Jack was strongly believed in culture, and you're going to hear me talk about kiss up, as you might think about it, and kick down. So I've worked for a lot of bosses, and several of them have kissed up to their leaders and kicked people down the street. That is not the kind of culture that Jack Welch believed in. I'm going to put up the grid. I think the grid is excellent in explaining things. You have values, culture, philosophy on the bottom here, and you have performance. Are you making your numbers? Are you completing your projects on time? Whatever that your performance is measured with. Okay, so these are what you do with people that live in this grid. So if somebody's not performing and they don't believe in the values of the corporation, let's just call this guy can't make his numbers and he screams at his employees. Okay, a screamer. You guys have seen him out there. Pretty easy choice for Jack and me. Get rid of him. Send them away. So let's go over to low performance, high values. Well, he or she believes in what the organization is doing, carries the mantle for culture very well, but is having some trouble with his or her performance. Well, those people, you need to train them up. Give them a second chance. Get them trained up because they have those ethics that you want them to have. Go up to this one, and it's high performance, high values. Well, that's pretty easy. You bring these people before people to talk to them. You promote them. You train them. You do great things with these people because those are your cash cow leaders out there, if you will, or your stars. But here's the one that gets a little bit challenging. You got a high performance guy or girl that's making their numbers. Maybe it's the person that was driving all these people to issue new accounts at Wells Fargo, appeared to be high performance for sure. And she might have been a high value match for that organization, but in general, she was low value match. These are the people that kiss up and kick down. Well, Jack says, what do you do with these people? And my students sometimes say, well, let's retrain them. Well, values are characteristics, and going back to a long time ago, those are gut level values, and you are not going to change them without some kind of significant emotional event. So what Jack said to do was fire these people, fire them with vigor. Well, and I agree with that completely. Now, when I say fire them with vigor, I looked for this story, and I think it's hidden in the book Winning. If you don't have public hangings for bad culture in a company, you don't take people out and let them say they went home, spend more time with their family, they went off to pursue other interests. He says that's crazy. And here's a story that is in the book. They have a training center at a place called Crotonville. And Crotonville is like, they have a place they call the pit. Well, down at the bottom of this pit, you've got executives, you've got the senior leaders of the company, including Jack. And around in the Coliseum, the seating portion, you've got all your, you got stars up there. And they fire questions down at the floor. And it's a great, it's part of their working out strategy if you want to go read about it. But the interesting thing was they got all these people in there that are going to be leaders in the company, and they come in and they've got the executives down there, Jack's down there, and they got 3 extra chairs. Well, those 3 chairs down at the bottom, he says, are these people late? No, I don't think they're late. Well, did our maintenance people get it wrong and put the wrong number of chairs down here? No. He says, you know why these chairs are empty? I fired those people this morning. They didn't go off to do some kind of extra time with their family. They didn't go off to pursue other interests. I fired them because they did not follow the culture of the company. So he feels rather strongly about this, and I agree with him. If you work for a leader that kisses up and kicks down, you're going to be looking for another job, and they're going to lose some really top talent with having leaders like that. So I go back to the grow leaders who thoroughly understand the work and live the philosophy and teach it to others. Can anybody tell me what this is? Well, you might be able to figure it out because of the name of the presentation. That is upper left-hand corner. That is a very nice Samsung Note 7. Down in the lower right-hand corner is a Note 7 that either exploded or burned up. Well, that ain't good. Can't have that kind of stuff. So let's talk a little bit about Samsung. And in fact, Samsung's having a really bad time right now because I could have also put up a picture of a washing machine because they have like 2 million recalled right now because they get really wild and the top comes flying off in the middle of the spin cycle. Samsung's going through a hard time. But let's talk about this because it ties back to a couple of points that I want to make. They say level out the workload, work like a tortoise, not a hare. Build a culture of stopping to fix problems to get quality right the first time. And then the real thing here is respect your extended network of partners and suppliers by challenging them and helping them improve. Let's go to the first point and work like a tortoise, not like a hare. The Samsung Note 7 was somewhat rushed to the market because they looked around and they said, hey, the iPhone 7 is coming out and it doesn't have a lot of new bells and whistles on it. It's not going to be a major change. So they said, whoa, let's get our Note 7 out there. So one of the things that happens, and this kind of goes back to your suppliers, and this is the story from one of my students. they had two suppliers for batteries. One that was tried and true and they'd worked with for a very long time, and one that wasn't. And with that, they couldn't get enough batteries from their tried and true battery supplier, so they went with another battery supplier also. Well, and this is, we're going to get back to root cause. We're going to get into a little bit of this in the next few minutes, but one of the big things was that they said, okay, we know what the problem is. We can save this situation. They said, hey, all the ones that are exploding come from the the new battery supplier. So they said, okay, wonderful. We're going to recall those. We're going to send out replacements from the new or the current tried and true battery supplier. And well, they started blowing up and catching on fire too. So now we got another problem. So they didn't really take the time to fix the problem. They were, hoping that that was the problem, and they had some data that said that. And sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. They were unlucky this time with sending this stuff out, but they also weren't good because they were using a new battery type that gave you 3,200 milliamp hours instead of once again, what iPhone 7 and iPhone's using is a 2,900 milliamp hours. So there's 3 milliamp hours if you're a technical guru out there. But what it really points out is in between those two, there is one will catch fire and one won't catch fire, I guess, to make it very simple. The other thing is, okay, so they want a battery that lasts longer, so they will with the higher amp hours. And they also want something they always talk about, look how thin it is, look how light it is. Well, when they were building it, they put these batteries in there and then they squeezed them. And what you do is you squeeze the two terminals close enough together, they arc, and it catches on fire. Let me tell you about the Toyota philosophy that kind of goes back to the network of partners down at the bottom. Toyota is more than glad. They help out their suppliers out there, but they're even glad to go out and let people come in and see. I mean, they invited Leiker in to write the book that pretty well gives away all their secrets. They'll let people come in and see what's going on in their company. And Deming has one more point here. It's called the theory of profound knowledge. And if I can boil it down, it's to an extent, you can't take something somebody else is doing and cookbook it and put it into your organization. It just doesn't work because there's a whole lot of different cultural things. So Toyota will welcome these even their competitors in, and they'll say, yes, look at how we do things. And they know they can't duplicate it back at their factories or in their companies because they've built a culture out there that has become so important to the way they do business. And if you take it and you try to shove that culture into that set of processes into a culture that doesn't accept it and isn't prepared for it, then you're going to have some real bad problems out there. So let's go on to another guy. And I think I probably put his name on the slide. No, I didn't. All right. So who is this guy? Okay, his name is Taiichi Ohno. Taiichi Ohno did a lot of things. He talked about a pull system, and he was very good at going and looking and seeing something and then saying, that will work here. And actually went into U.S. grocery stores and saw how the customers pulled the product out, and then it was replenished as it was pulled out. He said, go and see for yourself to thoroughly understand the situation. Gemba, go to Gemba. If any of you have taken any lean courses, they'll talk a little bit about Gemba. Gemba is the real place. So And I think he believed in standardization a lot because look at the hat he's got on. I guess they said in that factory that, by golly, everybody was going to wear a hat like that. Now, that's probably not the style these days, but he was showing the way in wearing the hat. And standardized tasks, I mean, I come from flying airplanes for a living, and I really wanted the ejection handle to be in the same place every time I might have needed to reach for it. So one of the things that Taiichi Ohno came up with was called the Ohno Circle. And remember, he says, go to Gemba. Well, when you get to Gemba, you need to learn to see. You need to see the process, not how it was designed by the engineers, not what you think is the right way, but how it's actually happening if you're going to go ahead and try to improve that process. So he'd go out, and you don't have to do this, but I would certainly suggest you go out and enjoy this a little bit, because it's amazing what you'll see out there. But he said, go out. The circle is, you draw a circle on the floor with a piece of chalk and you stand in that circle. And initially people will say, oh, there's Taiichi Ohno over there, there's whoever standing there. But you'll soon become part of the scenery unless you stand in the middle of where the forklifts go. And then you're probably not going to become, you're going to become something else at that point. But he said, stand there. And he took a young engineer and he said, stand there for he said, well, how long do you want me to stand here? I'll come get you. He came and got him in 8 hours. And the guy said, what? You know, how many of you young millennials out there would stand there for 8 hours and watch a process? Well, I gotta tell you a story. I did do this. We had some stuff, and I didn't stand there for 8 hours, but I worked for a wheel manufacturer, aluminum wheel manufacturer. Well, what you do with aluminum wheels is you have to, first off, you melt the aluminum down, you put it into a machine, and then you cast your wheels out of that. So you put them into a mold, and hey, it's all big scientific. But the thing is, you've got to check the specific gravity of the aluminum, molten aluminum. So I'm standing out there one time, and this is absolutely God's honest truth. I'm standing there, and there's people walking around. There's forklifts going back and forth. And I look up, and here comes a guy that's got a ladle of molten aluminum running across the floor, dodging in and out of all these other people. And I'm thinking, huh? So if I had not been at Gemba to see this, and I went and asked the head of that department, I said, what is going on here? So I was part of the quality department. And then I have a little bit of safety background too, because you know, you bump into somebody with a ladle full of molten aluminum, it's not going to be good. He says, well, we only have 3 specific gravity machines, and we've got to get that aluminum underneath that into a vacuum within 15 or 30 seconds or whatever. So we've got to make a run for it. And it was like, I cannot believe what I'm seeing. How long have you been doing this? Well, this week. Here you go. Here's a statement for the change management people. We've always done it this way, right? So you go, hey, we gotta do this. But well, I guess that's a story to get you to go to Gemba and see what's going on and learn to see. Open your mind, because they're not probably going to do the process the way that you expected them to do the process. If you want to do something fun, go out. Somebody sent me on the internet, and you can go out and check for it because I looked for it. It's called the Toothpaste Factory. Go out and read that one, and you will find out even more about why it's great to get out on the floor. I had a doctor. I said, man, you got to, and I'm an industrial engineer, and I'm probably a real pain to be around anyway. I'm a process guy, and I'm standing in this very long line to check in at the doctor. And it's early in the morning. I mean, there shouldn't be that many people there. And this line is crawling along. And so I'm a pretty good patient, but except for the point where I go, hey, doc, you got to look and see what's going on. You got to do something about that front desk check-in. It's a mess. And I'm just trying to help you out. And he said, you know, I've been meaning to take an afternoon off and just go stand and watch. So the other thing that Ohno came up with is he talked about 5 whys. Why did the robot stop? The circuit was overloaded and the fuse blew. Now, how many of the people out there go out and they replace the fuse and they go, oh, there you go, we're all fixed? Well, root cause is finding the root cause, not treating the symptom. So, and it may be 5 whys, it may be 7 whys, it may be 3 whys. But if we go down through this, you want to ask why was the circuit overloaded? Well, there wasn't any lubrication in there for the bearings, so they locked up. Why didn't we have sufficient lubrication? Well, the oil pump is not circulating enough oil. Well, why is the pump not circulating enough oil? Well, the pump intake is clogged with metal shavings. Well, and here's your 5th why. You can go further to this. Why is the intake clogged with metal shavings? Because there's no filter on the pump. Now, if you want to go further, you go, why is there no filter on the pump? Well, we had to cut costs and we gave up on the filter. And you can go further. The thing about root cause often is it ends up blaming it on somebody. And people do not like to be blamed. So, you know, but it's not to get to somebody, it's to get to the root cause so you can fix the root cause out there. So we also do something in class called the cause and effect diagram, a fishbone diagram, an Ishikawa diagram. But no time for that here. But let's have a little bit of fun. There's something called the reverse 5 whys, and we're going to get ready to go to the next video. But the 2 questions are, and just watch the first two clips in this thing. There's 3 in the clip. But the first question is, why do you have a grandson that has a dog collar? And the second one is, why did you wake up in a roadside ditch? Okay, those are just kind of fun. If you probably remember the old DirecTV commercials, but that's kind of a reverse 5 why. And so they take it, you have a grandson with a dog collar, it's because you don't have DirecTV. Now, sometimes cause and effect doesn't get there quite as well. I understand we have one question.
This is a question from a current graduate student, to Mateo.
Okay.
And he says, quality and safety, what is the difference? And if there is, which has the priority?
Well, I don't know that I don't think I can prioritize one or the other. I guess I will prioritize. And I'll say that safety comes first, because at each one of the places I've worked, the stated mission many times is, we want you to go home with the same number of fingers and toes, arms and legs, and life that you brought into work. So safety has got to be there first. And I got to tell you, I worked for a company and it was just amazing. It was this wheel company, and nobody really cared about quality when there was a guy that was new on the forklift. He was carrying a pot of molten aluminum, and he was moving forward to the furnace underneath the casting deck, and he not only pinned the guy that was directing him against the furnace, but also sloshed some molten aluminum on him. So I don't think he cared a lot about quality at that moment. He actually survived, but this is kind of, and I want you to really think about, this company did not have a very good reputation. And they only kept me around for 6 months because I told them things that they needed to do. But they didn't call an ambulance for this guy. They went out and they loaded him into a pickup truck and drove him to the hospital. And then they didn't report it to anybody because one of my fellow people that work here at MSOM, husband, actually found out about this through a back door. So safety first. You got to do safety first, but quality is tremendously important, and I will tag on to say that if you do quality right, safety is going to take care of itself. We also have something called 5S. It's a lean principle, and we talk about it in class. In fact, I talk about it in my maintenance class, and I talk about it in my quality class. But 5S is sort. Everybody's got a drawer at home that's full of junk that they will never use again, but they think they might use again. Sort. Throw that stuff away. Shine. Set in order. Oh, you go out to your garage. I worked for a boss one time, and he said, I can go into my garage blindfolded. This was a good guy. I can go into my garage blindfolded, and you tell me to find something, and I will find it with the blindfold on. That is set in order. Shine is, and we talk about it in my maintenance class. You have a machine sitting out there. I got a tractor at the farm where I work, and it's got hydraulic fluid all over it. Yeah, I know, I'm not as good as I should practice what I preach. And the hydraulic fluid is going down. Now, if I took a power washer and power washed all off that hydraulic fluid off of there, I can see where it was leaking. And that's the same way with a lot of machinery out there. Okay, so and the last one is standardize, and then the hardest one is sustain. But if you do those 5, then you also get another one called safety. That's your 6th S. So if you do these principles, then you're going to augment the safety program tremendously. Okay, so now we've got to do some advertisement. And if you don't think that I believe in this course, you're wrong. Like I said, we got a change management course coming, or change management portion coming up. Here's the website, just a copy of the website. Now, most importantly about this website is you go up to the, this is Greg Carnell, he's my boss, but don't look at this video. Go up there and look in the About Us area, and you'll see a number of people that work in the MSOM program, and they're going to talk about things that we do. In fact, there's one really good-looking guy. I'll let you choose who you think I think is the good-looking guy on that video. But anyway, go out there and look at that. The big thing that we do, you've got people that are grabbing things all the time out of current events. They're bringing those things into the classroom. You are seeing stuff that is right now.
And we actually have another question.
Oh, no.
From an audience member. You mentioned the importance of culture in your presentation, specifically GE and Mr. Welch. How can you change culture if culture is not conducive to achieve the strategic goals or initiatives or quality of an organization?
Oh, that is an excellent question. I tell you.
1 minute.
Okay, I'm going to answer it really quickly. This food processor that I work for, it's a Fortune 100 company, so you can go out there and maybe be able to figure it out. But we got the right leadership in place. And then we started measuring the right things. But it takes a long time. You've got to measure the right things. You got a mission and a vision and core values out there, okay? So the leadership goes out and asks all the time, says, hey, what is this initiative doing to support the mission statement? You tie it all together, but you make sure Your core values say the things you're going to do, and then you hold people accountable for that. And Jack Welch just kind of sped it up when he would fire somebody with vigor. If you want to see some more of this, and this is the schedule going forward, but I will tell you that Travis McNeil is next, because most people don't remember all of this, but these are all top-notch instructors, and making organizational change management work for you. Everybody's got to change out there. It is the most difficult thing that you can do, and I put forth, go see what Travis McNeil's got to say.